They've done it again. This surveillance image of Chicago police raiding a family's home might have gone under the radar, except for one detail: when it was taken. 11 days after the city publicly announced reforms to the way officers get and obtain search warrants.
Yeah, it was a great show, great speech. But as CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini reveals, it seems the raid teams didn't get the message.
They treated us like we were below them.
Any individuals found within a location where a search warrant is executed must be treated with dignity and respect.
The mayor's pledge. Do you feel like they should have treated your family with more respect?
Yeah.
And the police superintendent's vow.
So the real question you're asking is if treating someone with respect gets in the way of doing our job. And the answer is no.
Promises of reform made after the CBS 2 investigators exposed dozens of bad raids on innocent families over the last 3 years.
We are going to get this right.
That was March 3rd. But just 11 days later,
I never got treated like that by anybody in my entire life.
this happened. A raid team that we found violated Chicago police policy hits a home in Bridgeport with so much force the entire structure shakes.
We're still in our pajamas, just lounging around.
It was a Sunday morning and George Garcia's birthday. His wife, Kimberly, and their 2 children, 12-year-old Georgie and 3-year-old Cruzy, were excited to celebrate. And then what happened?
All of a sudden, I just hear my whole house shaking and a big bang.
Videos from the Garcia's home security system showed police pulling up, a team of officers with guns and a battering ram heading to the side door to break it down. Only problem? The search warrant they are holding was not properly approved.
I just heard like boom, boom, boom.
Even before that March 3rd news conference, Chicago police policy required a lieutenant or above verify and approve all search warrants. Now the city says it's an even higher rank, a deputy chief who must sign off on a warrant before a judge does.
These are just some of the new pre-execution safeguards that must be followed before a search warrant can ever be presented to the state's attorney or to a court.
But none of that happened in the Garcia raid. Armed with that warrant in question, police kept ramming the door. Garcia, worried it might fall on him, ran to a window to talk to police.
So you were yelling out of a top window?
Yes. Stop hitting the door. I will open it. And I said, hey, guys, I'm trying to open the door for you guys.
Hey, guys! Guys, I'm trying to door! Open the door!
Then they told him not to move.
Stay right there! Stay right there! Make sure we see your hands. No problem. Stay right there. They're breaking the door. Hey, no, come on, hey, let me see. The door's already open.
Once inside, the raid team headed to the 2nd floor and burst into Garcia's apartment.
What was the first thing you saw?
A gun.
Then they say they tried to get to their youngest child, Cruzy.
And I'm just trying to get to my kid.
Do you see it?
I just play it over and over again.
And they just put the gun to my head and told me to turn around.
Which brings us to the city's next promise: immediate changes to how vulnerable people, especially children, will be treated during raids.
The guns were pointed at your brother and your mom.
Yeah, my dad.
Georgie Garcia says he and his little brother ended up in another room.
2 children are screaming, screaming for their parents.
So the whole time you were put in that room, you couldn't get to your mom and dad.
Yeah.
And you were scared.
I felt scared. I didn't want him to see me crying.
You were trying to console your brother?
I had to stay strong for him, so I kept my emotions and just protected him.
And then there's this. The city also promised to address one of its most widespread failures we uncovered during our multi-year investigation into wrong raids. Long before their news conference in March, it was CPD policy never to base a search warrant solely on the word of a confidential informant. But the Garcia warrant is based solely on the word of a confidential informant. There's no mention of any actual police work, no undercover drug buys, no surveillance, no verification at all that drugs were being sold out of the apartment before police burst in. Later, we see these images. The entire apartment ransacked, personal belongings and toys wrecked.
They're not doing their job. That's just it. They're just using their own system however they want, however they see fit.
The warrant only gave them the power to search Garcia's apartment on the second floor of this multi-unit building. But when they found nothing, they started to search the garage and other units too.
It makes no sense. I was sleeping, not minding my own business.
Officers searched the first floor where Michael Zastro was in bed. You can even hear the raid team talking about how it was someone else's place.
And what's this, somebody else's apartment? Yeah.
They pulled me out the room, and then they started searching my whole room and the whole apartment.
And this wasn't just any raid team. All of the officers on this raid belonged to Police Superintendent David Brown's newly created Community Safety Team, formed last year during the height of unrest and widespread calls for reform as a way to not only fight crime, but to improve trust between police and the public.
They were just laughing the whole time, like it was funny, like it's like this was some kind of sick joke to them.
Then came the final humiliation.
They went through your underwear drawer
And not just through it, like they were holding it.
and showing it.
Yeah, like putting it up and then like giving me looks and like smirking.
But the hardest part of the raid, they say, is what it did to the children, especially Cruzy.
Does he talk about seeing the guns?
Yeah, he keeps on saying, monsters, and he goes like this. He's like, monsters, monsters.
In that moment, while you're handcuffed and you couldn't put your arms around your kids, what did that do to you?
They get all emotional and you can't do nothing. You can't comfort them. You can't give them a hug. You can't tell them mommy's gonna be okay because you don't know what's happening.
And then when they left, did they say, we're sorry?
No, they said happy birthday, and we asked them what happens with the doors, and they said he's in construction. He can figure it out himself.
The officer who got the warrant and the sergeant in charge of the raid have a combined 86 disciplinary complaint investigations, 4 of them sustained, 2 apiece. The Civilian Office of Police Accountability is now investigating what happened during the Garcia raid. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
In a written statement tonight, Chicago police say they, quote, immediately referred this incident to COPA, but a source familiar with the raid tells us CPD only brought it to COPA's attention after we started asking questions and submitting public records requests.